vision without a task is but a dream. A task without a vision is drudgery. A vision and a task is the hope of the world. This is a statement from a church in England, and I thought it was very apt to use this quote to introduce this episode of NewsMaker Live. Thank you for staying tuned to NewsMaker Live with Laura. If it's Wednesday, it's NewsMaker Live, where we make your stories our story. And by now, you should know that we're going to be talking about visions this evening. Now, what is a vision? Is it just mere eyesight, or is it insight? Tonight with me, my guests are from the Vision Commission. Yes, that much touted and talked about Vision Commission. And with me, I'm certain most of you at home would anticipate that my first guest would be Dr. Stephen King. And
good evening.
Well, surprise, surprise to me, with Skita Carrasco, who just happens to be somebody who's going to be very dear to me. So I'm going to try to be nice this evening, but I know we have a lot of questions. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. King, Ms. Carrasco. Thank you for gracing us with your presence on NewsMaker Live. I know that we've all heard about the Vision Commission, and we want to know, what is the Vision Commission? What is its mandate? Who are the commissioners? What are you guys up to? I mean, we hear it, but I don't think it resonates with us. So who's going to start? What is the Vision Commission?
Good evening, Laura, and it's certainly a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for having us. And I would start off by saying that the Vision Commission is made up of a committed and patriotic group of St. Lucians who have taken on the task of engaging the St. Lucian populace, the citizenry, in dialogue to determine what their views are for the vision of St. Lucia. So we have been engaged in this process of dialoguing with different groups and with different communities on the island. And so this is the first part of our mandate. The second part of our mandate is to develop a strategy for implementing this vision that will come out of the process, the dialogues that we are having.
Okay, let me just pause you here. Now you talk about patriotic St. Lucians, and when people bandy these words around, you know, I sit up straighter and I get a little bit excited and I get a little bit perturbed even. Who are these patriotic St. Lucians? Because I think I'm one of the most patriotic St. Lucians you could ever possibly find in the entire diaspora, not just St. Lucia. I have yet to come across the Vision Commission in my communities, in my church, in my groups, at my work, nowhere. All I know about the Vision Commission is that there is a Vision Commission. So who are these St. Lucians? Where do you find them? How do you engage them?
Okay, so the chairman of the Vision Commission is Mr. Adrian Auger. With me tonight is our deputy chairman, Dr. Stephen King. And we have commissioners who represent various sectors, civil society, the private sector, the youth, the trade union movement, the religious organizations. And so just to name some of our commissioners, we have
Mr. John Peters, Mr. Mark Louis, we have Jonathan Chalon, Skeeter, myself. We've got Boo Hinkson, we've got
Patrick
Matfre,
Fortuna Anthony Husbands.
Okay, so some of these commissioners, pardon me, are every time there's a commission, every time there is something, we hear the same names. It's almost as if St. Lucia is bereft of new ideas. It's almost as if St. Lucia doesn't have anybody else. You hear the same usual suspects over and over and over. It's like we're regurgitating, we're repeating. It's like a recurring decimal almost.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that these are the only people in St. Lucia with visions?
Of course.
How do we select, or how did we come upon with those commissioners? And I'm glad, Skeeter, that you're a commissioner. Hey, for young people, young women. But seriously, when we hear the Adrian Auger's. I mean, nothing against Mr. Auger, but it's just like, come on, somebody else, please.
I'll tell you, I think a lot of the commissioners were selected by the groups that they represent. So, for instance, Skeeter and I, if my memory serves me right, we were both selected by the Prime Minister to be on the Vision Commission, right? So different organizations, the chamber, everybody recommended people. So that is how commissioners were selected. But you are right in that very often you get the same people seeming to step forward. Or being selected, or putting themselves. Because I mean,
I'm going to cut you off, and you can cut me off. I mean, this is our solution mode of communicating. It's like, for instance, you, Dr. King. I almost never know what you're talking about.
Oh, fair enough.
Because this evening I heard you talk about the ganja movement, and then you talk about the death penalty, and then you talk about underage.
I'll tell you. You see, my view, we are all citizens of this, and I want to call it a great country. Because I'm a patriot. I'm a St. Lucian. And I believe we are great. And I believe we all have every right to speak and have an opinion and voice it freely and fairly. And when I say fairly, that's F-E-A-R, fairly, and F-A-I-R, fairly. Okay? So I think that, and for me, I believe action is the best form of advocacy. So doing is showing. I stand up as a St. Lucian and I'll speak my mind. And I expect every St. Lucian to do the same. And I will do that. That's why you'll hear me talking about various things. But I'll tell you another thing. It's one reason why I chose health as my discipline, to do my studies and to live my life from the health platform. Because when you talk about the health of somebody or the health of a people, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual, because that is what a human being is composed of, these main three elements. When you talk about that, that gives you a platform, in fact, to speak about anything. It could be the death penalty. It could be ganja. These are all, when you get down to it, these are all human conditions. Health is a foundation of the human condition. That's why I love health, because health gives me a place to stand and have shall I say, an ability to see things from that perspective. So if you want to know how I am speaking, think of a doctor who's seeing things holistically, mind, body, and spirit. And then you'll understand why I'm speaking, how I'm speaking, and where I'm coming from.
Oh, I don't have a problem with you speaking. I quite appreciate your candor and you standing up and speaking about various issues. I'm one who thinks that people in general should be very opinionated. You should have an opinion on everything. You may not be an expert on everything, but you should have an opinion on most things, if not everything. So, yeah. But I just find when it comes to on a national level, we are a nation of approximately 170,000 people. It could not be that the only people that the Prime Minister could recommend are the same 5 people every time for everything.
Well,
now,
okay, wait.
That is not to say that you can.
Our Prime Minister recommended three of us.
No, that's
so,
abstract.
Just for the public out there, before they think that the Prime Minister selected 5 people for. No, it's only 3 that he said.
For the Vision Commission. But when I say the same 5 people, I'm being very facetious.
I know you are.
There's only 5 people that the Prime Minister ever chooses for anything at any given time. But I think most St. Lucians would agree that we hear the same usual suspects all the time. But having said that, I'm not going to beat that to death, because I know the callers are going to call. A certain particular caller in particular is going to call and say, and kill that. But we only have limited time.
But on that same note, I just want to say that the vision, as Skeeter said it beautifully, we are not defining the vision. What we are doing is trying to harvest that vision from the people by speaking to them. So it's not our vision; it's the people's vision. Of course. So,
and we hope, unlike the reform, what they call it, the you know that reform process that we went through, the law, the constitutional reform?
Yes.
Right,
Yes,
right. Thank you, Skitter. The constitutional reform, and it's not just tossed aside and said, this is not the will of the people. Because the commissioners, listen, St. Lucia, the commissioners are saying that they're harvesting the vision of the people. So when our policymakers will take that vision and toss it aside and say, hey, this is not the vision of the people, we heard it here, that the commissioners are harvesting the vision of the people.
Yes, and one thing, as we've asked this question before, and I would tell St. Lucian people, even with the constitutional reform, that if that was your view, and I think it was, you should stand up and you'd stand by it.
Absolutely.
So even if the parliament, in my view, the parliamentarians say something and you don't agree, stand up and speak fairly.
Wonderful. Speaking of standing up and saying, speak fairly, I have one problem. I'm just gonna put it out there. When people make statements and they say, I don't believe this has been thought through clearly enough, or I think there are issues, and then when they have a chance, an opportunity to make that opinion count, then they back off and then they just leave it as is. You know, it's only good enough to say, I disagree. But when it comes to taking the necessary actions, then the action is glaringly missing. I just wanted to get that out there. How long has been the Vision Commission since it's been implemented or put together?
Well, the Vision Commission was sworn into Parliament on Monday, the 28th of April, 2014.
So that's 2 years
yes,
almost.
so it's almost 2 years since we've been
Commissioned.
established, yes.
In that time, what has the Commission been doing?
So the Commission has been dialoguing with various groups, and the first group we actually met with was the media, and your media colleagues did provide us with some interesting information, and they had their views of what they liked about St. Lucia, the things that they thought were working well, one of which was the freedom of the media and the ability that we have.
The freedom of the media. Now, I find that very surprising. I find that it wasn't so long ago that a certain media person was made to apologize over and over and over and over again for that just same thing, freedom of the media. So I have my issues with that. But then again, I'm a baby in the media business. I'm not necessarily mainstream media worker, so, but I find that very surprising that was one of the things that they touted.
Yes, and
amazing.
I mean, they, like all other groups, they spoke about the beauty of the place, the natural beauty, the warmth of the people, the sense of community that we have when we are faced with challenges and hardship, as was demonstrated during Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve trough. So they shared quite a few positive aspects of our St. Lucian society. And
now, for some reason, Skitter, Dr. King, when I think about the Vision Commission, and I like to hear those things, I love St. Lucia, and when I start talking about St. Lucia, I have this glow, especially to foreigners, oh my gosh, I love my country, blah, blah, blah. But when I think about the Vision Commission and the work of the Vision Commission, I'm thinking about how we can make St. Lucia a better place, how we can, what is our vision for a crime-free country, or a country where unemployment is at a minimum, and the nitty-gritty things. Not the things that God has blessed us with, you know, the natural beauty. We have that. And if we are decent human beings, we can maintain that and upkeep that. But what about the things that, you know, when I walk downtown, I almost don't want to come to the city anymore. I moved out of the city 2 years ago, and one of the greatest things I ever did was to move out of the city because I just can't stand it. Every time I come up to Castries, I'm like, man, I have to walk along Jeremy Street. I hate it when it's raining. It's filthy. It smells. I mean, we have vagrants just roaming about, you know, walk during downtown at night. It's like, you want to puke. It stinks that much. I'm not sure if it stinks more in the nighttime or it does in the daytime. There's absolutely no life out in the city after a certain time. It's like a ghost town. Those are some of the things that I would like to hear addressed. Are there any people that you've engaged to get the sense of that, you know, how can we change the landscape, not just the physical beauty, but the very things that make living in St. Lucia, in the city, in the South, comfortable and worth living.
Laura, just to go back, when we start off our dialogues, one of the first things we do is to get from people the things that are working for us as a country. And this includes the things that we like. And most people do say that they like the natural aspects. And I don't think we can take these things for granted, because we all hear about climate change and the effects of global warming. So even the wonderful environment that we sometimes take for granted, it is really not there forever if we don't do what we should to take care of it. So that should be part of the vision that we have an environmentally sustainable policy that will ensure that our children, our grandchildren enjoy the same beauty of the land that we enjoy today.
Awesome, wonderful. And especially with, I mean, what is it? 0.5 to stay alive? 1.5 to stay alive.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry, when it comes to those kinds of things, I will admit I'm not necessarily the best person to have, you know, to have my finger in that pie exactly. I'm more the humanistic side of things, and how are we going to fix things, how are we going to make St. Lucia a little bit better for our children. And I would rather our children live, and I know that's an awful thing to say, to live in a concrete jungle where they're safe from the people who are supposed to be protecting them, who hurt them. So you'll forgive me a little bit if I hone in on those areas, but it's a good point that you brought across. I mean, we heard all the time, the previous generation always say that this is not the St. Lucia that I grew up in. And they're not just talking about the crime levels or the unemployment levels, but really about when I hear my mother talk about catching crayfish and getting, you know, punished for taking, you know, in her calabash, instead of going and get the water in the river, catching the crayfish and putting it in, you know. I listen in amazement, because I don't know that. I know a little bit of it, but I don't know flowing rivers, you know, with abundant crayfish and all of that. I don't know that. I mean, when we were little, my sister, who's much younger than me, well, growing up, she was saying things like, "Mommy, I want to live," she gave my mom a picture, "I want to live in a place like this." And there was this house and this huge expanse of land with birds and birds flying and trees, you know, these little things, you know, like the little W things you see in the sky. And so my mom asked, "What's those?" She says, "Birds. I don't know what it's like to see birds. I want to see birds." And so my mom created that enclave for us to grow up in, because she felt bad because she grew up in that. And a lot of kids, her children, didn't necessarily know that. And I know my children will not know that, may not know that. So it's very important that you brought that up, because, you know, every generation comes one step further away from the natural beauty that the generation before grew up in. And the generation before that says, no, you don't know beauty, you don't know natural beauty. We know natural beauty. So that's, what are some of the other areas that the Vision Commission has gotten into, that, you know, you've sunk your teeth into, that the people are talking about?
Well, I remember in the Viewfort, you mentioned the South, the Viewfort dialogue with young people. I remember one thing that came out very strongly was also that some youth felt that we were losing our identity, that the youth did not feel the St. Lucianism, did not feel St. Lucian. They didn't have a good grasp of their history, their culture, who they are as a St. Lucian. And that, I think, was also important. And they felt that, because we asked them, what do you love about your country? What would you like to change about your country? And what's your role in that change? And then we asked them for their vision. These are the things we do. And they were saying that, you know, their education curriculum needs to change. The way that they are taught should make them understand who they are. And then they felt that, you know, that speaks also to the fact that they feel we are a weaker nation for not knowing who we are. And therefore, in their view, they said that they feel that we are not, although we say we're independent, we're not independent. We are dependent people. And we've become like beggars and mendicants, because it's like we we don't have any pride and dignity. So that was some of the elements that were coming out. They were saying that they felt that successive governments have been too weak at being able to manage the sovereignty and to steward the country in a manner in which we could be more self-sustaining. They lamented some of those things and said that they would like to see some of those things change.
What are some of the reasons that you've heard for that lack of identity, the identity crisis that we seem to have found ourselves in? What are some of the reasons that have been given in your harvesting of visions?
I think a lot of people speak about history, the fact that our St. Lucian history, I'm not talking about our West Indian history, but our St. Lucian history is not taught to us. When we were at the National Trust, they were talking about the names of places and what do those names mean. You know, I remember in the Babano, in fact, they were saying Babano being the bar of good water, the hill of good water, right? They were talking about Piton Floor being named after one of our iconic female brigands, right? So things like that I didn't know, and many of our youth don't know. So I mean, there's so much that I think we should be teaching our children in terms of the history that would help us with our identity. And then, of course, is also even now the current context. What is your in the old days we used to call it civics, but what is your political structure? What is your government supposed to do? What are your rights? You know, what as a St. Lucian, how should you be governed? What can you do? Where do you go to get what? How do you understand this? How do you understand that? What opportunities are there for you? What can you expect? Things like that, I think, are also speak to the fact that we don't have that kind of identity and grounding.
So one of the things that I hear when I hear you speak about those things is, and it just keeps popping in my head, is education reform.
Yes.
So when you've harvested, and I know there must be a lot of other areas that you've what are some of the groups that you've met so far in the almost 2 years that you've been in existence?
We've met with some of the schools, the secondary schools, the fifth formers. We've met with the South Louis Community College. We've met some community elders at the Mortgage Club 60. We've met with the trade unions, some of the trade unions. We've met with the major political parties.
So we met with certain community groups, met with the National Trust, so
the Rotary Club.
And we have many more to see again, but so far.
The business sector as well.
Okay, so in almost 2 years, you've been doing a lot of harvesting, and I'm using your words.
Yes.
You've been doing a lot of harvesting. When will the harvesting end? Because I think that there must be a beginning, there must be a middle, there must be an end, right?
Yeah,
so we've been harvesting, and there must be a cycle of life, yes? We're harvesting.
Where do we go to from here? I think in fact, in this year, from January on, we're moving into a different phase now, a different mode. I think.
So you've done all the harvesting now?
No.
The harvesting continues.
The harvesting continues. We've done a lot of groundwork, so we have a good harvest there, right? Which we have it nicely stored. Now we need to go one step further. So even like there's a lot of media activity this week with the independence activities, because we felt that independence is a wonderful time for us to be discussing the vision for our country. Because I just finished telling you some of our youth in Viewfort were saying they don't feel independent. So if we are going to celebrate our independence, then let us celebrate our independent vision for how we can be more independent. So that's why we're moving to this phase of more media communication, media harvesting, because look at your reach. Whereas we can go to a community and see 100, 150 people, tonight, which you are sure, we might be reaching 20,000 people. So now we can harvest from those 20,000, depending on what they want, and they can feed back to us on our Facebook platform, our website, or they can call in tonight, and we can capture that information.
So you're still harvesting.
Yes.
You're just harvesting in a different. You're going to more mass.
And we're going to start drafting, putting it together, and we are actively engaging people to help us to start putting a report together, start putting the harvest in sequence,
right,
so that we can then present it back in a coherent manner.
What is the life of the commission? What is the lifespan of the commission?
If effectively, we're supposed to finish our work by May this year. We may have to go a couple months beyond that.
That seems to be a long time spent on harvesting, and a relatively small amount of time spent on taking all of that harvest, putting it together, breaking it down, putting it into smaller bits, analyzing it, and putting it in a policy form, or in a format such that you can present to Parliament or present to the people. Forget Parliament, because we know they're going to present to the people. This is what your vision. Because one of the things that I was sorely disappointed in the constitutional reform policy report is that the people, maybe it just doesn't resonate with me, didn't come to the people and say, this is what you said. So we came to you and we asked you, what did you want to see changed? And these are the things that you said you wanted changed. And I could be wrong, but I didn't feel that enough was done after it was poo-pooed in the House to say to the people, this is what I was mandated to do. This is what we worked so many years with you, the people, to put together, to show that this is what you want to see changed, and now I'm handing it back to you to stand up and do the right thing. So it was put in the House, and then what? Nothing. Now we don't even know who the commissioners were. We hardly remember, except for Justice Susie Devine, and I think it resonates, or it remained in the public mind because she was a female. She was a fearless female who, broke no nonsense. Everybody remembered her and as a trailblazer and said, look, this is how they treat, one of our fearless leaders, and a lady nonetheless. And so we make her a martyr. But it was never given back to the people and say, this is what you asked for and this is what your government is doing with it. They just said, you're insignificant little bunch of people.
Yeah.
So
I agree. But
how is that going to be different in your case?
Yeah. Well, yeah. 2 points on that. First, I want to come back to the Constitutional Reform Report for a minute. And I agree with you that I think that, the people were not given the report back before it went to Parliament, and I think it would have helped if the people had been better informed. But also, it's something that I want to urge my fellow St. Lucians. You don't have to wait for a commission or a body to come back to you. You can ask. That's part of not exercising our independence, to stand up and say, excuse me, you consulted with me, you said you were going to produce a report. Where is it? I want
and that's part of my vision.
That's
part of my vision, that we become a people, and that's why I keep stressing and pushing. So, we're talking about the nice little things, the trees and the birds, very important.
Of course.
The ecosystem, very important. I mean, there's no life without it. But my vision for my people is a people who's going to stand up and say, listen, hey.
Don't throw the garbage there.
Right. Oh my gosh. As you speak of garbage, let me just say, and I'm so sorry, Skitter, but I'm going to put Choiseul in the limelight right here. I was in Choiseul one day, and Choiseul for years, as a child growing up, I've known Choiseul to always have won. A library always coming second after Choiseul. That used to irk me. Plebel Village. And there was this idiot, and I hope to God that he was not a Choiseulian, throwing garbage in this school, and what irks me even more is just the month or a few weeks before, there was a big no dumping of garbage here by the order of so, and that the fine, and he was through, and I'm not lying to tell you, the nasty that came out, and the person unremorsefully told me, thank you. Thank you. So I had to park my car and go and pick up the garbage and go and dispose of it.
Well done.
And that is the vision I want to see, a vision of a people who take pride in themselves, in the pride in the environment. It's all good and well to say, oh, the trees and the birds, but hey, we're killing the trees and the birds.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, by our very actions. I would like to see, my vision for my country is a people who would say, hey, that was my vision. This was what I want to see. And you just poop at it, you're fired.
Yeah, I hear you.
That is the vision. So,
back to our harvesting. Don't you think it's good that the Vision Commission, that we spend more time harvesting the people's ideas rather than writing the policy? I'll tell you why. Because it's the people's ideas that we need to put into the policy. Now, we could sit, the commissioners that we have there are talented enough to sit and write a policy. But we said no, because we could have done that a year ago, a year and a half ago, and given it to the government. But we wouldn't, that would not be the people's vision. So I think the harvesting is really the most important part of the process. It may be tedious, it may not look sexy and exciting to the general public, but that to me is really very important.
I think that you're quite right, that the harvesting needs to take time and maybe tedious. I mean, I did research for years, and I always say this is the part of my job I hate the most,
That's right.
the research, but it's the part of my work or my career that I love the most, because the more I find out something, the more I want to know, okay, so if I paint this wall blue and it was already green, what is the color it's going to get? Now it comes this color. Now if I put red on top of it, what? So that is the thought process. So I hate it, but I love it. It's a love-hate relationship.
I understand.
And just to
However, I think just as much time needs to be put into sorting it out and finding out. But if this is what they want, and this is what could happen, or it could A could happen or B could happen.
Correct.
And the choices, and that is why you guys are the best brains, and you guys were selected because we know what we want. But now your job is to take what we want. Well, I'm just being, as usual, I'm being facetious.
To get away with
No, but you know you are the best brains.
No.
Well, maybe Skeeter is not the best brains, but you know, certainly Dr. King is one of the best brains, because Dr. King happens to has a finger in every pie. But hold that thought. We're due for a break. 10 pies and 10 toes, 20 pies. We're due for a break. When we come back, more with our guests on Vision 2020, or Vision Eyesight or Insight. We'll be right back.